Salam guys. So it has been a very long time since doing at least like an actual video. Oh, the battery's gonna die, crap. So on a positive note, when I bought this camera, the guy was nice enough to give me 2 batteries. So I never have the issue of having to change it unless they both die. So anyway, this camera is very unforgiving. You can see everything in HD. Anyway, so today's video is going to be the #1 requested video I have gotten. I've been putting off doing it for like a year and a half. I've done it twice already. The first time was literally like it was like a couple days before or a couple days after. No, I think I did it before I actually reverted. And it was like 40 minutes long. I still have it on my laptop, I think. Gosh. But it was super, super detailed, like all my personal details. I talked about family members. I talked about, you know, all of my issues in life and everything. And at the time, I think I didn't really grasp the fact that I was putting that out to the masses, and it may not be things that I necessarily wanted everyone in the world to know. So that was taken down. And then about, I think like last September, I redid it, and it was only like 15 minutes or something. But it was the most undescriptive story ever. It didn't grasp anything I was trying to portray. It was just something to put out there so people would stop asking me, and then so I ended up deleting that one as well. And then I was just like, you know, I'm just not gonna do it because it's a very personal thing, I think. You know, some stories are more in-depth or dramatic, I guess, than others, and mine just happens to be a bit complex, and I didn't really want to put all that out there, and I just didn't want to bother with it. And then I had the issue with the guy who made the video about me, and then I had all these atheists and ex-Muslims, like, you know, attacking my channel, and then I was just like, I can't be bothered to put this out there because then you've got all these people, and then the Christians come in, and it's just like, please leave me alone. But I think I've got a bit tougher skin since then, and I've kind of just got over it, and like, you know what, like, I don't care, like, your opinion is irrelevant, to be completely honest. I'm still gonna carry on with my day and be totally fine. So yeah, then I was just been thinking about it. People keep asking me, and like, I don't want to say no, I'm not gonna tell you, because that's not exactly fair. And like, I do want to be able to help people with my story, and, you know, help people maybe that are thinking of reverting or have already done it and need advice and blah, blah. But it's just been trying to decide the best way to go about doing it, without revealing too much, but without having it be like bland either, and like ignoring the important details. So here we are. Happy election day, by the way. Good luck, guys, back home, because, well, actually it's gonna affect me as well, to be honest. Probably won't be allowed back in the country, depending on how things go, but hopefully America, you know, uses their rational thinking in going into this final day of the election season. However, I think one thing that, you know, this is totally irrelevant, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I think one thing that this election has definitely showed America and the rest of the world is how many ignorant people there are in America. So anyway, good luck, guys. Right, so without further procrastination, also, I have been told many times about my speaking with my hands thing. I know I do it. Don't make fun of me, please. Like, I can't help it. I think it's just a thing. I like to do all of that business. So anyway, what are you doing? Where do you even begin? I don't know. Okay, basically, all right, general background. My family is Christian. I come from a Christian background on both sides. My mom's side were Christian, and my father's side were Christian, but then he kind of became Catholic, and I'm not really sure what's happening now with that. But anyway, so, you know, I came from a background where you just assume that's what's right, and you're never really, you don't consider any different, and you think any other religion is just what someone else was born with, but you don't think it's right, even if you don't know anything about any of the religions. You're just raised to think, you know, and for people, I don't know, like Christianity is just the one that you just assume is the right way if you don't come from a religious background or you come from whatever. You know, I feel like it's kind of like the default religion, and I'm not saying anything about Christians that actually practice and know their religion. That's completely different. I just mean the general population. There's so many people that call themselves Christian, but they don't know anything about it. They've never studied Christianity. They've never studied biblical texts. They don't actually understand what that means. But it just is something that people use as an identifier, even if it's... So, you know, growing up, even though I didn't really know much about Christianity other than Jesus is Lord and Savior, that's it, you know. That's all I knew. I consider myself a Christian even though I didn't know anything about it. And I won't go into the details of like my life story because it is really personal, and I used to be very, very open about that sort of thing, and I would tell anyone from beginning to end if they wanted to know, which are all very important factors into who I am now and where I am now. But it's something that now I'm more reserved with, and I don't want as many people to know, because it, you know, you spend your time sharing something with people or someone, and then, you know, something happens and they're gone or whatever, and you feel like you've just given so much of yourself and opened yourself up so much only to have it like thrown back in your face. And so on a larger scale, I don't really need the whole world to know as well, because that's just that many more people to throw it back at me. So yeah, I won't go too much into it, but I will give a brief details sort of thing. You know, I didn't have a good upbringing. I did not have a great childhood, you know, things were tough. I wasn't with both parents, and the parent that I was with was not well, you know, and my mother ended up passing away at when I was 14, and from the age of like kindergarten to like, well, since till I graduated high school, I went to like 9 different schools. You know, I moved around a lot. I was always having to say goodbye to people, and all the moves were rather like abrupt. It wasn't, oh, in this many months we'll be moving. It was always like a couple days before or something that I'd find out that I have to leave again. So, you know, I stopped kind of getting close with people. I stopped forming those relationships, and I kind of just, you know, got used to the fact that I was just kind of had to go everywhere, and you know, and it makes you kind of self-reliant, and you kind of just stick to your own thing because it's too painful to continuously open up to people, get close to people, and then something happens, and you know, you just feel like you've wasted your time, and you just get put through that pain again and again and again, and it really does take it out of you. So, you know, and with my other parent, things were not great either. And again, I won't go into too much detail about things, but it was just a really tough time from a young age until about like a year ago. So yeah, it's been an ongoing thing. And then after the passing of my mother, you know, and her and I were extremely close. She was the person I was closest to, and even though she wasn't, you know, in the best state to be a parent, and she did struggle with a lot of different things and addictions and mental health issues, you know, I loved her more than anything, and I knew how important we were to her and how much she cared, even if it didn't always seem like it, and even if, you know, I saw her in so much pain and she wasn't able to do things for us and, you know, really be there. I knew how much she cared. And so losing her, even to this day, you know, nothing in this life that could happen to me would top that. Nothing would be worse. So I truly feel that I have had the one thing that could be the worst thing I could experience in this life has already happened to me. So from that, you know, I did it only recently kind of developed this idea of anything that happens to me now it's not worth being so distraught over, because I always remind myself of that, and I'm like, you know what, it's not worse than that. Nothing is worse than that. So in a sense, you know, I'm trying, and I've tried to see the positive in that. So anyway, following that, again, I was still moving around a lot, wasn't in a great home situation, and I had a lot of mental health issues following that. You know, in my previous Instagram post, I opened up a bit about my eating disorder, which those sort of things and the mental health topics, I want to do like a separate video series about that, because I do feel like it's something that's important to speak about, even if it makes me really, really uncomfortable. Because, you know, even after just that post, I had so many people messaging me like, hey, I'm struggling with this, hey, I'm struggling with that, you know, thank you for sharing your story. It's good to know that I'm not the only one. So if I can help people by a means of sharing those things, it's worth it to me to be a bit uncomfortable in, you know, expressing what I went through. So, you know, following that, I developed an eating disorder, self-harm issues, you know, depression, all of the lovely family of bad things. And so that kind of was just like a vicious cycle for a few years. And so that was about from the age of 14, when my mom passed, up until, you know, the age of 18, I think, it was only after that things actually like got better. You know, I still, you know, up until 18, things were still really tough for me. I maybe wasn't as expressive about it. People didn't know, but it was still really, really difficult. But I think when the religious aspect comes into play for me is that, you know, when I was little and when I was going through all of these things, I have like these vivid memories of multiple times, you know, being alone in my room at night and just feeling this heavy pain of just everything that was happening and everything that was going on around me. But I always felt this like protective presence, I don't know. And for me, that feeling and that entity, whatever, that I was identifying with, that was what I believed in, and that was what I prayed to, because I knew there was something bigger than myself that was taking care of me, because no matter what was going on, you know, I was protected and I was kept safe from a number of things. And so I was never an atheist. I, you know, said I was agnostic for a while, but, you know, like, I always knew I believed in something. And I knew there was something there. And so I feel like that was the root of everything, really. And so throughout my life, you know, even if I, like, you know, before I wouldn't pray if things were good. I wouldn't pray if things were fine, but, you know, I would when things got tough. And, you know, you're just pushed to this point of, like, you don't know what else to do. Like, there's nobody that can help you. There's nothing that can make a difference. So you're forced to ask for help from something bigger than yourself. You know, if you don't have a means of making things better on your own, it's like you eventually are pushed to this point where you have nowhere else to turn to. And I think a lot of people do experience that, even if they don't want to vocalize it or say, you know, it is something that happens when things are really, really difficult. So anyway, fast forwarding, you know, and I kind of carried those memories with me of that presence, I guess, that I felt, and things would come up every so often. And so fast forward a bit, you know, I got better in certain things, and things got a bit better for me. And because I haven't lived at home or with my parents, or at either of my parents, since I was 16. And you know, then I was living in a different location, and I graduated high school. And throughout my whole like senior year of high school, I had a friend group in my junior year, but then they kind of like, an incident happened where there was a misunderstanding, and basically they ended up like hating me for something that didn't even happen. So I kind of was just like, you know what, it's fine, I've got a year left and then I'm gonna go somewhere else anyway, so I'm just not gonna stress about it. So I literally spent my senior year alone. Like, I had no friends because my sister had graduated and I was friends with a lot of her friends, but once they were gone, I was just kind of on my own. So, you know, in that year I joined the spoken word club, which was really, really good, and I really enjoyed and was like an expressive thing for me. And I was taking AP art, and you know, our little weird mix of group in that year, those were like my core friends, and then the spoken word people. But other than that, you know, I kind of just stuck to myself. Like during lunchtime, and so it sounds really sad. During lunchtime, one of my teachers would let me use her classroom and I would just kind of do work or whatever, and she would go eat with the other teachers and I would just sit by myself in the class doing work. But yeah, and so kind of being on my own forced me to think, you know, what do I want to do? Like, I'm about to graduate and I don't know like where I want to go or what I want to do. And I didn't really want to stay in the States because there wasn't anywhere that like appealed to me, you know, because I moved around so much. I didn't have like a home base that I was leaving and it was going to be so dramatic, like moving away. I was just kind of like, you know, I've been here, there, and everywhere. I'm not really bothered about where I go. And then I was like, why don't I go to a different country? And, you know, I'd been to the UK when I was 10, and then again when I was 16. I must have been 16 or 17. And so I was like, you know what? Let's look at schools in the UK. So I literally Googled how to study in the UK, you know, and I found this website, and I won't get too much into details. Anyway, I did all this by myself and found this university and was like, yep, that looks good, apply, and I got in. And so I went to the family member I was living with, and I was like, by the way, I got into university in Wales. And she was like, okay. So anyway, then when I was 18, I moved to the UK and began studying here. And, you know, my first year was spent as you do as, you know, a teenager who's going to university, going out most nights, you know, drinking, partying, clubbing, whatever. And, you know, prior to that, in the US, obviously you can't drink till you're 21, but, you know, y'all do it anyway. And you find a way, and whatever. So I had drank before. I wasn't too like wild, you know. I was, in the sense that I would like sneak out. This was like when I was living with my dad. I would sneak out to their parties and like, you know, whatever, and basically go do whatever. But like I wasn't like horrible, like I wasn't crazy. It was like, you know, typical, you know, whatever. And like as far as drugs and like that sort of thing, that was never really my thing, because of my family past and because of what happened with my mom. You know, I was really, really adamant of being against that and staying away from that, because it's just, I've seen the damage that it does and I've seen it rip my life apart. So it's not really something that I got involved in. So when I did come here, it was really just drinking and like going out, and it's legal. You know, I was of age here, but it got to a point when I kind of realized that it wasn't for fun anymore, and that I had things. And you know, I study psychology, and having been through therapy for years, like, you know how to analyze, and like, so I was analyzing my own actions and was kind of like, you know what, I'm doing this to repress something, like something's not going right. And I realized, you know, there's a lot of issues that I had and like built up kind of emotions and previous things that had happened that I hadn't really dealt with, and was just replacing with another thing, and had another thing to kind of mask it, I guess, because, you know, I had been doing better with eating and I had stopped self-harming, but I needed something else to be my escape, I guess, and or my negative coping skill, and then that went to drinking. And so once I kind of got to that point, I kind of was like, right, this isn't cool, like, you need to sort this out. And so I kind of just stopped going out towards the end of my first year, because I realized, you know, this is a problem. And then as well, like every time I would go out, I would end up really, really angry and like getting upset with people for no reason. And like I lived with all guys my first year, and so they could kind of take it and were just like, yeah, whatever, like chill out, stop being so moody, and you know. But I would either be like really, really angry for whatever reason, or I'd get really, really sad and would just cry. Like, I'm sure you guys know drunk girls crying, but I was like, would be in hysterics. And when I get upset about one thing, like I think of everything that has happened to me since the second I was born, and it all just comes crashing down, and I was just like a mess all the time. And so finally I was like, why am I even bothering going out? This isn't fun anymore. Like, this is horrible. So I stopped going out, and I started kind of focusing on trying to be, you know, the positive kind of new age sort of thing. And because I did have my hippie phase, I don't know the best way to call it, but you know, I had my yoga, music festival, weed phase. I never did any of the stuff that, you know, is kind of more now coming into the music festival and like psychedelics and stuff like that, just because, again, with the drug thing, I just really don't want to go there. And so it was just kind of like that, and like that was a really positive point in my life in comparison to other things, you know, because I was focusing on whatever spirituality I was messing with. And so I kind of started to lean more back that way, not necessarily with smoking or anything like that, but just kind of the mindset of like being in the moment and really like, you know, expanding your consciousness and all of that stuff. And no one's gonna know what I'm talking about unless you've like been in this kind of thing. So but anyway, so I kind of got back to that and like researching just like spirituality and that sort of thing. And I read a lot of Eckhart Tolle and was really into like just the universe and all of that stuff, and I kind of channeled that as what I believed in, because I believed in something bigger than myself, but I never believed it as like a man figure. I never believed in that aspect of Christianity. I couldn't grasp that. Like, it was just not what I believed. Like, the entity that I was praying to was not anything like us. Like, I just knew. I knew that it's like your brain cannot grasp it. It's something so much beyond like what we can even comprehend. So anyway, getting into it now. But yeah, so I kind of got back into that. I did start doing yoga again. Nothing wrong with yoga. I still do it now. Like, it's great mind, mood, body synchronizing thing. I'm like literally like this. Okay. So, you know, I got back into that and then reading about that, and my mood was just so much better and I was feeling a lot more positive. But I still was like, the fact that I didn't have, like, I couldn't grasp the concept of God, and I didn't have like a structure to exactly what it was that I was believing in. I just felt, it just didn't feel like exactly right. And so then at that point I was kind of like, right, okay. And then this goes back to the whole believing Christianity is right and that's just the default kind of thing. And so I just assumed, okay, well, let me start practicing this and researching this. So I ended up somehow finding this church, or this congregation thing, and they started in North Carolina. It's called Elevation Church, and Stephen Furtick is the pastor, and he's amazing. Like, I don't care what, like, he is an amazing speaker. He is just, you know, with it. Like, he's just, and he's so intelligent, and just like the way that he, you know, speaks, it really, really grabs you. And so I really connected with that. And I would listen to a podcast like every night, and like the way that it was improving me as a person, like, was super noticeable within myself. And you know, because even the stuff he talks about, although it is all referenced to like Bible verses and all of that stuff, the lessons are just applicable to everyone. Like, it's not, it wasn't too like, Jesus as Lord and you know, sorry if that's offensive, but you know what I mean. Like, it just, anybody could really get something from it. It really, like, the way he did it was very, very clever, and it was a really youth-based kind of group thing, so I found that easy to like get with. However, I kept coming back to I don't believe in the Trinity. I couldn't get myself to grasp the, you know, core principles of Christianity. I loved his talks and everything, but as far as like when you get down to the details, it just wasn't stuff I believed in, because I started at the same time kind of researching the origins of Christianity and what they believe in and breaking it down, and I was just getting really confused. And I was like, you know, in like my heart and my head, I was like, if this is the truth, it should be easy for anybody to understand, and it should be clear, and like, because the truth doesn't need to argue, it just is the truth, and it just makes sense, you know? And if it's for everyone, like I said, it should be easy to understand. You know, as I was researching that and then kind of realizing it wasn't exactly fitting with my beliefs, I got really discouraged, and I was just like, okay, well, maybe I was wrong. And so then I kind of left that again, and went back to my, I'm not really sure what I'm doing, but I'm praying to something, but I don't know what it is. And you know, because I would always pray to God, but it was just, I was like, is this just my God? Like, you know, but it was a very confusing time for me. And so again, I left it, but I was still doing well. I was still, you know, educating myself on different things. And at that point I did start researching, you know, multiple religions. So I researched Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, and I never thought about researching Islam, because as an outsider looking in, it very much seems, well, like Hinduism as well, and Judaism, it seems like something that you can't just join. Like, it's not a free-for-all. It's like you are born into it, and it's integrally, you know, bound with culture, and it's not something that you can be like, this looks good, I believe in this, I'm gonna join this. So I just didn't bother. Like, it just seemed something so foreign that I just didn't think to look into it. And then alas, a girl I was working with at the time, she's Catholic, and she went to Morocco, and I want to say it was during Ramadan or near Ramadan or something like this. And basically she came back and she was like so stoked, like she had an amazing time, and she was just like going on and on and on about this. And like, her and I had talked before for like hours about like religion and all of that stuff, and life, and, you know, philosophy, and so we would get really into it. And so when she came back, she was going on and on and on about that stuff, and obviously there's a lot of Muslims in Morocco, duh. So she said something that just stuck with me, and that was that the way that Muslims spoke about God was really beautiful. And I kind of was like, oh. And like, like I didn't realize it at first, because I didn't keep thinking about it. It was just kind of there, and then it started like popping up again, and I was like, huh. And the way she was going on and on, like, I thought she was gonna convert, and I was like, are you sure? Like, I don't know. I would just kind of leave it, like, you know, stay away from that. Lol, look what happened. Anyway, funny how things work out. So yeah. And then finally I was just like, you know what, let me just look into it. I was like, for educational purposes, I've researched all the other religions, might as well complete my circle. Like, I'm someone that loves to study anyway. I love researching different topics and just miscellaneous things that I may not necessarily need to know about, but it's just interesting. And so I was like, right, okay, let me put on my glasses and get going. And so I went on YouTube and was looking at different things, and initially the things I found, you know, are Mufti Menk, Numan Ali Khan, like all those sorts of dealios. And I started reading about, you know, the 5 pillars of Islam and like the essential kind of key points, because I didn't, like, bear in mind, I knew nothing, like, at all. I knew there was like a black box, and, you know, there was the scarf thing, and like I knew like nothing. And they prayed. I knew that they prayed, and they did a lot of this and a lot of hokey pokey business, but that's all I knew. And so, you know, I was researching the basics, and the thing that got me first, and I was kind of like, huh, I didn't realize that this was with this. Basically, it was the description of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how, you know, the word Allah has no gender, it has no, like, it's like it's a word that is like none other, you know, and basically in a sense that God is, you know, a supreme being that we cannot put a face to, we cannot put any human characteristics to, we can't put a gender to. Allah is just Allah, like it's just, he's just God, you know. And that to me, I was like, ah, that's what I feel like. I agree with that, you know, is that we can't like say God is this or God is that, because have you met God? Like, God is God and he is with everything and through everything and a part of everything, but not something you can contain, because how could you possibly contain the thing that created everything? Does that make sense? Anyway, that's how I was thinking. And so I was like, yes, I agree with this, you know, that makes sense. And the more I researched, the more I was like, this is a lot like how I feel. This is a lot like what I've kind of been doing, but just didn't know that there was a religion that matched with it. Like when I was in 10th grade, I think, I was like, I'm gonna make my own religion, and I wrote like a list of like things I believed in and things we wouldn't do and like that sort of thing, and I don't remember what it was called. But anyway, so it was like, I think a lot of misconceptions people have with reverts is that they shift what they believe in to match Islam, but for me it was not like that. It was, this is what I believe and this is Islam, and they just happen to be the same thing. And so obviously I was like initially like, whoa, like this is what I've been looking for. And like, I think, you know, something that's really important is that, you know, obviously Allah is going to give you Islam if it's what is meant for you, but there is that aspect of you need to be seeking it out, you know. If you look at so many reverts, it didn't just fall into their lap, like they wanted this and they needed this, and so Allah gave it to them. And you know, for me, like having gone so long feeling so alone and not having anybody and not knowing who to turn to and who to ask for help from, to suddenly just feel completely like immersed in like, it was like a hug, like a cosmic hug, you know, of like just realizing that there is a God and there is this being I've been talking to has been listening, and he's been, you know, there for me. And a huge thing that like clicked with me as far as like on the spiritual level and not just the intellectual level was the fact that the presence that I felt, you know, when I was little was exactly the same thing I felt when I was researching Islam. It was the same God that I had been praying to, that finally I had like a grasp of, and or as much as you can anyway. And so I think that to me was the real telling point. And I was just like, it was like, it's like fireworks in your brain, and you just kind of like all of these things at once, and you're like, oh my gosh, like it's just clarity. Like that's the best way to describe it. It's like, you know, a veil being lifted. Like if you went your whole life not knowing that you needed glasses, and then you get glasses and you put them on and you're like, oh my god, everything is so clear and like sharpened, and it just makes sense. And yeah, so anyway, that's that spiel. And it kind of reached a point where I was like, obviously I was thinking about, you know, my family and how is this gonna go and like whatever, but I had reached a point where I knew this was right, and I knew that I agreed with this, and I was more afraid of turning away from God and his, you know, truth that he had given me than I was of my family. You know, I knew that I can get through, but turning your back on God is the worst thing you could possibly do. And so I just kept researching and like totally immersed myself in like studying for a good while. And then I was in Florida over the summer and subhanAllah, like I'd stayed in this house multiple times, like on multiple occasions where I was staying in Florida, in the middle of nowhere. Like if you've been to Florida, you know, like the communities and stuff, they're just like randomly placed, and like you couldn't even walk to anywhere if you wanted to. Like if you're in Florida, you need a car to go everywhere. And basically I was just chilling in my room and I looked out the window and there was like this line of trees and I saw this like little gold point and I was like, let me see. So I got on my phone and I looked on Google Maps and it was an Islamic center and mosque. And I was like, no freaking way. Like there is nothing in walking distance but this mosque. And I was just like, okay. So I found their website and I emailed and I was like, hi, I want to become Muslim. What do I do? And then I got in touch with the imam and he gave me his number. And so I was messaging him and I had planned to go in, I don't remember what day of the week it was, but whatever. This was a year and a half ago, July 24th, no. Where are we at now? 26, July 2015. And yeah, and so I was just supposed to meet him and like talk to him about stuff and just like have a chat, ask him questions. But I just had this feeling, I was like, if I don't do it now, like I don't know when I'll get another option or like an opportunity. So I messaged him that morning and I was just like, hey, so can I just do the thing today? And he was like, yeah, of course. And he's like, okay, well come in at this time instead because it'll be prayer time and so there'll be people there so you can have witnesses and that sort of thing, because I didn't have anybody but myself, you know. And so I just wrapped a scarf around, you know. I wore as much modest clothing as I could, which was like khakis and like a long sleeve shirt in the middle of summer in Florida. So props to you guys that have been doing it for years. And I just had bought 2 scarves, and so I wrapped one around and like I pinned it with like a bobby pin. Like this was the struggle. And so I just wrapped it and then I just walked by myself, didn't know what I was doing. There was some women with like children and I just was like, how do I get in? Because there was like, it was huge, like huge mosque, the biggest mosque I've ever been to. And so there was like 50 entrances and I was like, I don't know like where to go. And they were like, oh, it's right there. Like, I was like, oh, okay. And so I went in and then I was just like, they were all praying and I didn't know what to do. I was like, if I don't know or if I'm not praying, will they know that I'm like a foreigner, like, you know, like. And so I just asked someone, I was like, I'm here to have a meeting with the imam, do you know where he is and like what I can do? And they're like, okay, I'll go get him. And then after she spoke to him, she came back and she was like, oh, okay. And there was like a women's side, and well, it was, instead of like being divided like 2 separate rooms, it was one big room with like a thing in the middle where we could see through but the guys couldn't see through. And someone just, like a guy came to the thing and was like, take this, and it was like a microphone, and I was like, okay. So I took it, and then like on speakers the guy or the imam was like, no, sister's here to, you know, take her shahada today, if you can all be witness. And everyone was like, what is happening? And yeah, and he was like, repeat after me, and I was like, okay. And so obviously my Arabic was not on point at the time. I'm pretty sure I didn't even say it right, but it's the intention that counts. So yeah, I just kind of said it then and there and was like, sound. And that's kind of how it went. You know, so that's basically how it happened and kind of how things clicked for me and kind of how I came to Islam. Obviously there's so many more factors that play into it, and but I think at the root of it all, you know, everyone wants something to believe in and everyone wants like something graspable. I don't think that's a word, whatever. Something that they can grasp, that they can believe in. And you know, I found that. And as we learn, you know, as Muslims, our natural state is a belief in one God. And I had that the whole time, but I just didn't have, you know, so like in Surah An-Nur, like, you know, light upon light. I had the initial light, but I needed the other light to come and be light upon light. And you know, and I got that, and it was a really, really amazing time for me. You know, it was a really difficult time that summer, you know, because with things with my family did not go well at first. Alhamdulillah, they're better now, but at first they were really, really tough. But like, my iman has never been as strong as it was then. Like, I didn't care about what happened to me. I wasn't concerned about anything, because what I had and like what I felt and like the connection was like the most wonderful thing I'd ever felt in my entire life. I didn't care about anything else. I was like, you know what, I've had this now, that's all I want. Like, that is the best thing, like the most amazing thing I could have asked for. And you know, I miss when my iman was like that. Even though it was only a year and a half ago. You know, everyone has their iman ups and downs, but what you have when first finding Islam is just like incomparable to anything else. And so I think that overwhelming feeling of like, I finally felt like I found my place, and I don't mean like in the Muslim community, I just mean as far as my beliefs and with my relationship with God, it just, everything kind of just fit, and I was like, everything makes sense now. You know, even everything I'd been through, everything that I had dealt with, it just kind of, I looked and I was able to connect the dots and be like, I see why certain things had to happen to get me where I am now. And you know, even not only with reverts, you know, born Muslims have these moments too, and you know, maybe they're just raised a Muslim but they don't actually know much about it, and then they kind of research and build this understanding themselves. And I can't imagine, you know, the difficulties for people that have knowledge of Islam and they just haven't felt that personal connection with God. And I've had so many people messaging me, like born Muslims, and they're like, please inspire me, because I know so much about my religion and I practice, but I don't feel anything. And you know, so I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you something that really allows you to feel that connection, because that's the only thing and the primary thing that motivates you to, you know, please God and to build a relationship, is that heart to connection that you have. You know, you can have as much knowledge as you want, but if you don't feel it, like, why would you implement it? But that's a whole other topic. The whole point of this is to explain how I became Muslim. You know, there's a lot of misconceptions about reverts and stuff, that they met a guy, or that, you know, they whatever had Muslim friends. Like, the first Muslim I met that identified as a Muslim, but like I, you know, knew them as Muslim, was the Imam the day I said my Shahada. Like, I didn't have, you know, people influencing me. And I feel like, again, that's like the main misconception, is that somebody must have, you know, corrupted you and like, you know, whatever. But it really was like my own doing, because it's what I was looking for, and when I got like a taste of it, I knew. And so you just want more and more and more. And so yeah, it was just kind of my own thing and how I got here. But yeah, a huge help to me in my research and studies and kind of feeling a connection was with Chelsea Hijab Love. You know, I got in touch with her through Instagram or something, and like now we're really close, and like she was my like bank of knowledge, like, you know, through that time, because we got WhatsApp, we'd WhatsApp each other and like voice note, and I'd ask her stuff about Islam, and like she would just give me like the most beautiful explanations. Like, I have a notebook full of like taking notes from like her voice notes and stuff. Anyway, you know, if you're looking into Islam, if you're a revert and need support, if you're wanting to become a revert and need support or guidance or whatever, feel free to get in touch with me. You know, email me, put it down there. I am really busy, but like for this thing, for this sort of thing, I do try my best to give it special attention, because I know how it is and I know how tough it can be, and confusing but also beautiful, and just like this whole mishmash of emotions that you are going to have. So I'll try my best to, you know, be there for anyone that needs me. Yeah, if if you have any more specific questions, I think I covered everything. This is probably going to be a little bit long, but you guys asked for it, and I didn't want to be too vague, but I didn't want to be too detailed, and I'm kind of proud of how this has gone. So anyway, thank you for watching all the way to the end if you did, and yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Okay, sound like him.